So to thoughts.
E nā kua ke amakua ke poe kaiko molokai nui a hina aloha aloha e mahalo. Ulikako. Aloha na akua, na aumakua, na poikaiko. Mahalo. Mahalo akua for all of the blessings today, for the rain and the wind in this part of the world. We thank you for the sun and its warmth and the land and its strength and its mana. We ask for your presence to be with us here as we continue to share in this Kukakuka TalkStory with that of the Norfolk Ohana. And we ask, of course, for our ancestors to also join us and to be present, and that they guide all that needs to be shared today. And once again, we just like to say that we mahalo you, we thank you, and that we aloha you. We love you from deep within. We send this prayer to you now in flight. Ea mama, ea mama, ea mama, mahalo na kua. Righty-o. Okay, well, we're here and we're in the zone. And Joe, would you like to start us off with a bit of an intro and hellos and a topic?
Yes. Okay, sure. Just like to say welcome to everybody and thank you especially to Kawika and Catherine for being here and having this space for us all. So I can't remember what we were doing last week. This week we're going to be focusing on talking about Pono and Ho'oponopono and the Hawaiian practice of forgiving and letting go. Mahalo. Kawika, you're muted. We can't hear you, Kawika.
Sorry about that. So it doesn't look like we have any new joiners. So we all have an understanding of who we are. I'm really excited about this particular topic. It's a topic that, I've been speaking on about and practicing for many years now. And it's always a pleasure to embark into the world, the universe of Ho'oponopono and Pono anew every time. So I'd like to start off by asking each of you if you have any understanding of what the practice of Ho'oponopono is. Many of you know what Ho'oponopono is?
No. From what our mothers, from what Mum Jo has told us, I think we understand it to be a process of healing, like healing, letting go of past grievances or any grudges you hold, any baggage you have, and healing from it, and moving on.
That's right. Okay. Pretty direct and pretty simple. Beautifully said, actually. And of course, there's tons to unpack and tons to elaborate on, but that's a really good basis to begin the share. All right.
Awesome. Cool.
So look, Pono is where we want to begin. And Pono is a way of life. It is a way of being. And it speaks to us of right balance, right harmony. It speaks to us of right alignment. It speaks to us of an understanding of what is intrinsically the place of belonging. And when we speak of belonging, we are talking about your place, in the universe, and we're talking internally and we're talking externally, and we're also talking about all of the components of your being where they rightfully belong. And when this happens, there is an alignment. Okay. And again, the alignment that we're speaking of, it harkens back to that aka chord, that line of communication, that clarity that comes forth when we are right in our being. And I will also want to share that this concept of right is more akin to righteousness, and it has very little to do, in fact, nothing to do at all with the Western concept of right or wrong. It's everything, again, it's everything about you being where it rightfully belongs. And when this happens, there's an alignment. Yeah. And there's nothing anymore hindering or blocking your connection. And that's Pono. That's the state of being, which is Pono. It is your righteous alignment with everything in this universe, with your family, with yourself, with all of the facets of your being, your mind, your spirit, your body, your feelings, your thoughts, your emotions, everything where it rightfully belongs. And there's no more friction or conflict in you with the circumstances of your life, the relationships in your family, and it's aligning you with your past into your present, all the way through your future. And this is Pono. Okay. Now, when we take Pono and we transpose it and we communicate to it and we osmose it over to the practice of Ho'oponopono, the reason that Ho'oponopono exists is because our ancestors had a very clear understanding that we would run into things in our lives as humans that would cause us either to have a restricted connection or could even take us out of complete alignment and block us altogether. Yeah. And when that happens, there's some sort of defilement, or there's some sort of heva, what we call heva, which is defilement, or like pilikia, troubles, sickness, illness, all of those sorts of things are indicative of a connection which is blocked or no longer operating the way that it should be. And actually, physical illness or the physical representation of that illness comes along a bit further down the line than the blockage that takes place either on a spiritual, mental, or physical basis. Yeah. So in this process of Ho'oponopono, what we're doing is we're going in and we're freeing and clearing anything that's created that blockage. So we have the story of the bowl of light, and that story of the bowl of light also serves as an example of what we're doing in Ho'oponopono. So once again, this story, as it's shared, it speaks to us of our birth. And when we're born with a perfect bowl of light. The light allows us to fly with the birds, to swim with the fish, to speak to the wind and to the trees, to do all things in this universe. That's the power of the light. We have a tendency as humans of picking up the pohakus. The pohakus are stones. Stones represent fear, anger, hatred, sadness, jealousy. The list goes on. Every time we pick up a pohaku or a stone and we place it into our bowl of light, the light will dim because light and stone cannot hold the same place. And we can come to a place in our lives where we've acquired many stones within our bowl, that it is said our light no longer shines and we ourselves become stone. Here's the caveat. If we tire of carrying the stones in our bowl, we simply have to huli. Huli is to turn the bowl over. Yeah. It also, if you can recall, speaking of it and touching on it in the last session, yeah, huli speaks to us of change. Yeah, and the power of change. So in huli, we're changing. Yeah, we're turning the bowl upside down. We're dumping those stones out that reside within it that we picked up. And we're doing that so that our light can return to its fullness once again. Right? And our connection is free and clear. Yeah. So here we have in this cultural practice and tradition, yeah, we have the beginnings of all of the components that we've been talking about and we've been sharing for the last two sessions coming into place, and where we can begin to see them in action, right? And although we're speaking about them, yeah, it goes much further, much broader and abroad than just words, right? So Ho'oponopono, yeah, in that story, the bowl of light, it serves as an example of what we're doing. And literally in Ho'oponopono, what we're doing is we're going in, we are finding the stones, yeah, any stones that an individual carries, and we are removing them. And we're removing them so that the light can shine brightly once again and our connection is free and clear. Now, that spoken is very simply said, right? Now, depending on how heavy the stones are, now we get into the intricacies of the intricacies and the nuances of how to make that actually firm. Yeah. So we have 3 cycles in Ho'oponopono surrounding removing a stone, yeah, removing the pohaku. And those 3 cycles begins, the first cycle begins with forgiveness. Okay, so, and we'll come back to that cycle every single time that we need to, or that a stone is present. And we'll come back to that cycle of forgiveness until forgiveness is assured. Yeah. So in order to move from forgiveness into the next cycle, we must forget. Yeah. And forgetting is the next cycle that we're talking about. Forgetting is one of those components of forgiveness that is very widely misunderstood today. and it deserves, and it also requires a bit of clarity, right? Because when people hear forget, right, there's a lot of resistance that comes up to it without having the full understanding of what it is that our ancestors are talking about. So in forgetting, right, very simply put, and I'm going to come back to this one as well, very simply put, it means forget about it. Yeah, forget about it. Don't ever talk about it again. Move on. Yeah, that's the hardcore. That's your kupunas. That's your elders, your kupunas talking and speaking and engaging. Yeah, that's how they're going to put it. Yeah. Now, to soften that up a bit, to ease it into the understanding of us, particularly the Western mind, right? Where we hear a lot of, well, I can forgive, but I sure as hell am never going to forget, right? So to ease that, yeah, into place, what our ancestors are really sharing with us in this cycle of forgetting is that they're not requiring us to pretend like our experiences never happened, right? What they are, however, requiring of us is that we forget the fear, the anger, the hatred, the sadness, the jealousy that those experiences have caused us. It's setting into place, what we're capable of doing is setting into place all of the events, experiences, and circumstances of our life. And remembering that we're coming to a place where we're loving all of those unconditionally, regardless of how they went down. Yeah. So, and that's aloha. Now, to move from forgetting component into the last cycle of forgiving, now we're talking about remembering. Yeah. So we forgive, forget, and then remember. Remembering is speaking to us of the state of our light prior to the experience happening, right? This is talking about your state of being before the event happened. Yeah. So if you had something that was really, critical and happening in your youth, right? And before that, you're bright and shiny, everything's connected, you're running around in the forest, you're fluttering around with the butterflies, you're communicating to the lizards, the clouds, the sky, all of it. And then you have some really shitty, excuse my language, some really shitty experience that comes along or happens. Yeah. And it causes you to start to get angry, causes you to lose, to relinquish actually the power of your light, and to question it, right? To question its existence, its abilities, your entire self-knowing, right? So what we're doing in this component, in this cycle of remembering, is we're coming back to the state of your light prior to that event or experience happening. Sometimes, depending on how egregious the event was, sometimes we have to take an individual all the way back to their birth. Yeah. And we have to do that sometimes because that's where here we go. So sometimes we have to do that because when we're born, we're pure. Yeah. When we're born, it is all green lights, are go. Okay. So when we're born, everything's connected. Everything is free and clear. Yeah. So sometimes we have to, in Ho'oponopono, go all the way back to that point. And we have, of course, all of our ancestors there and present to assist us in doing that now. So those are the 3 cycles of in Ho'oponopono that we're working with and through to ensure forgiveness, right? We do this for every single stone that presents itself. Yeah. We do this for every single stone that resides in an individual's bowl of light. And we stay in Ho'oponopono for as long as that takes. When there are no more stones to be brought forward and to be released and to be forgiven, then we'll come to a close of the session. To begin a session and to end a session means that there's prayer. Right? The prayer is actually what we call puli. That puli is actually, those are the gateways, they're what we call the makahas. They're the gateways into and out of the sacred confines of Ho'oponopono. And we say sacred confines of Ho'oponopono because Ho'oponopono is a sacred act. It's spiritual first and foremost, right? So those prayers instill the parameters in which we go in and look for those stones and also remove them. Yeah. So the opening prayer takes us in and the closing prayer takes us out, and it also ensures that the pohakus that have been released and forgiven within a session of Ho'oponopono remain there, and then lifts them up to the higher power or the higher being that we invite to be with us. Now, in order to do Ho'oponopono, there are 4 really important questions, there are 4 really important questions that we ask every individual, yeah, before we actually do a session of Ho'oponopono with them. The first is, do you believe in a higher being? Right? That's the first. And it's the first because we cannot do anything without that energy power. The source of healing energy comes from that source. So if you don't believe in it, then Ho'oponopono cannot be done. Yeah. Now there's so much, you know what I mean? There is so much to go for. So as long as there's a belief, it's all good. Yeah, a belief in something. Yeah, us Hawaiians, yeah, us Polynesians as a whole, really. All right. We worshipped okay, I'll speak specifically of the Hawaiian branch of the Polynesian family. We worship 400,000 gods and goddesses, right? Gods and goddesses, 400,000 of them, right? So when the Christian God came along in the 1820s and 30s with the missionaries, it became 400,001, right? When Buddha came along, it became 400,002. When Shiva came along, it became 400,003. You know what I mean? Us Polynesians, right? We are open, we are aloha, we're gonna love you, we're gonna feed you, we're gonna invite you into our home, and it's all good. And you and everyone that's standing behind you, right? So all inclusive, yeah, that's the nature. Yeah, that's that's deep down, that's the Polynesian nature. Yeah, open, all inclusive, welcoming. Yeah. So any belief in anything other than yourself. Right. So If, however, the answer is absolutely no, not zippo, zilch, nada, not going to do it, not even going to entertain it, then the answer is no, right? We really cannot do ho'oponopono with an individual like that. Again, because we're not the ones doing it. Yeah. And we're not the ones we're not the ones with the energy power to do it. It comes from that source. So one more little component that I'd like to speak about with the higher being. Yeah. If we're dealing with an absolute atheist, yeah, or we're dealing with, or we're engaging with someone that is, really hardcore, strictly science-minded, totally like that. Yeah, all good, no problem. We can work there. Yeah, and here's what I mean. Here's what I mean. Okay, hold on. I gotta do something. Okay, here we go. So I've got this little cup of water. Okay, I've got this little cup of water. We're gonna see if my camera will zoom in on it. Water. All right, here's what I mean. So this is a representation of Akua. Okay, this little glass of water. Yeah. So if we're dealing with someone really science of mind, yeah, if we can come to an agreement on this glass of water, then we can move forward. Yeah, if we can reach a level of understanding. So this little glass of water, yeah, is a source of energy, yeah, that exists outside of myself, that is not me, because I'm not a glass of water, right? But if I drink it, okay, if I drink this water and I take it into my being, right, it's gonna grant me the energy power that I require to survive a little bit longer. Okay, following me? So if we can come to an agreement, yeah, on that understanding, then we can work with an individual in ho'oponopono. This is a beautiful example of what we mean by akua. Yeah, a source of energy that exists outside of myself, that is not me, but if I drank it, if I take it into me, yeah, then it will grant me the energy power that I require. Yeah. Okay, so now, if the answer to no, I don't believe, to a glass of water is still no, well then, will you definitely got to go somewhere else. Right. So anyway, that's the higher being question. Okay. The second question, of course, you've heard last week or the week before that. Are you happy? Yeah. Again, these questions, these two middle questions, particularly, are you happy and do you love yourself unconditionally? Those two questions is really all about getting a really solid gauge on where the individual is. Where are they in their lives? What's going on? Where are they coming from? Where are they going? The fourth question, right, is also a deal breaker if the answer is no. And that fourth question is, do you enter into a session of Ho'oponopono of your own free will? Yeah. You have to be willing to enter into Ho'oponopono freely. It can't be because your mom told you to, or because your best friend said it was such a great experience that you should definitely try it. You have to. Yeah. Doesn't work that way. Once all of the understandings of Ho'oponopono are brought forth and the individual clearly understands what the process is about, they have to make the decision then and there as to whether or not they're going to enter it willingly. If the answer is no, then the answer is no. The answer is yes, then hey, it's time to pray. Okay. There are many, many, many more layers, but I want to leave it there actually for a moment and get some engagement. Thoughts, contributions, questions about Ho'oponopono.
All right. Well, I have sort of a question, I guess. Sort of about the metaphor with the water, about how an outside source from yourself is a representation of, of belief in a higher being, I guess, for Ho'oponopono and how it can work for Ho'oponopono. Could that also, belief in something like, believing that trees supply us with oxygen, which, sustains us, is that like, is it comparable to those kinds of things as well? So if someone was like, yes, I believe in these sources that sustain us, and they can then move forward with that session because of that.
Absolutely. Yep.
Oh,
Straightforward
cool.
and direct. The answer is absolutely yes. Okay. Here's why. Here's why. This, is not water to someone like me. Yeah. This is a body form of the god Kane. Kane is the god of life. And because he is the god of life, he's therefore the god of fresh water. Right? What we're addressing when we are looking upon and engaging with our understandings of our environment. Yeah. Your example was the trees. Yeah. Someone that believes in the trees and they're generating and producing oxygen and this. Yep. Great. No problem. Yeah. What we're looking at, on a cultural practitioner level, what we're looking at is the spirit of things. Yeah. So the trees have spirit, the tree is alive. It has a spirit and it also has a name. Yeah. And just like everything else that we find present around us, right? The wind, the sun, the moon, the earth itself, right? So with that question, many a times what happens is, the individual will be like, well, I believe in something, but it's not a being, right? Meaning it doesn't have physical human attributes. Yeah. For me, it is the universe, period, full stop. Yeah. Or it's Mother Earth, or it's the sky, right? Or it's the ocean. Yeah. This is where we find connection. This is where we find a relationship and engagement with something that's not tangible. It's about engaging with the spirit of life.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Just
Yeah,
figured
right
I'd,
on. No, that's
ask.
awesome.
But
I love where you're
yeah,
at.
no, that's brilliant. Thank you. That's really cool. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. So, any follow-up questions? Any contributions, shares? Catherine, did you want to take it somewhere?
If no one's got any questions, I suppose I'm just sharing my, what really touched me and helped me when I first experienced Ho'oponopono. And I'd had times and events in my life where I had obviously picked up baggage or pohakos, as Kawika was calling them, and had quite strong emotional reactions that would come forth whenever they would get triggered or I would get stressed. And I had gone along to a lot of kind of just traditional Western style counseling and therapy sessions. And there was one particular event in my life where I would have to go and explain the story. Each time I either went to a new therapist or whenever something would go wrong, I would have to, tell the story again. And after a while, there was a sense within me that there was something a component that was missing. That was obviously, something wasn't really happening. I was just, okay, I'll tell the story again, but why am I still being triggered? Why am I still finding myself unhappy? It was like this going around in circle. And then when I came across Ho'oponopono, and I remember entering into a session, I had no idea. I'd had none of this explanation, whatever, about what Kawika's just given you. And that was just so fantastic, that delivery. I just loved it. You really covered just about everything except for what happens when you step into a session. But thankfully, I believed in a higher being, so that wasn't a problem. I had a really positive experience of, having come from an atheist family as well. Like, had no religion, no one in my life had influenced me with any form of higher being. But I'd had, other spiritual practices that had brought me to a place where I understood the importance of calling out and asking for help from a higher being and having help come to me, especially in those times in my life where I had been needing assistance, and it had come. Anyway, so I entered into this session with our Kumu Lawrence, and I was, had a recurring dilemma in my life at that time that I would think about constantly, talk about constantly. I mean, I was over it, let alone anyone else I came in contact with. And through the session, he would take me and ask me questions about every relationship that I had in my life up to that point. So family members, partners, and it was the particular issue that I was dealing with at the time was about a partner that I was in the process of trying to work out whether to stay with or not. But anyway, and he brought forth, he didn't need to know the whole story. Like, I remember it was great because he was asking me questions that weren't about what happened. He was really trying to locate the baggage. What was my reaction? What was my emotional boulder, stone, whatever, that what was I still hanging on to, And so the beauty of it, and Kawika says this quite often when he shares about it, we're only interested in the story, in the telling of the story, the sharing of the story, to the point where it takes you to you being able to recognize what it is you're still hanging on to. And it goes nothing about the other person. It becomes all about, what am I holding on to from that experience? And then the resolution, that there becomes, obviously a conversation about having to forgive, But then the other key point that was really profound for me in this moment was you've brought it forward now, we've resolved it, we've realized that you need to let it go. So Catherine, are you done with this now? Because once we close this session, you are never to pick that stone up again. You are never to go back into that story. You are never to bring that forth, whether you talk about it, whether you think about it or speak about it, whatever, it's done. And it was that key component, which was close the session, an agreement that I made with this higher being, that I am now done with that and it is never to come forth again. And it was so simple, yet I just remember driving home from the session and the habitual mind would try to bring forth this again. And it was like, no, it's done. I cannot go there again. And I just, it was something that was just so profound. And I've had this discussion quite recently with friends of mine who are having counseling, couples who are having counseling, and they just keep butting up against each other and the stories, and you said that and she said that. And it's like, I go, it's not about the story anymore. It's what are you hanging on to that is making the situation not be Pono, to not be connected to a source of happiness and joy. And, you know, what is it that you need to put down right now? And it's done. And that's where, you know, for me, is that very different to any form of other kind of, you know, therapy or counseling or, yeah, it sounds very simplistic, but it is very profound and has shedded and enabled me to conduct my relationships with my life with such a different quality, such clarity, and such love and such joy that was not flowing before. That was always clogged and hampered and had an edge to it. Anyhow, of course, there's new situations that arise, but once you understand the process, once you understand what we're trying to do here, what the ultimate goal is to return to that state of being that we were born with, then you very quickly recognize when you're getting very dangerously close to not, and you catch yourself, you know. It's a retraining, it really is. You need to empty the bowl to then be able to remember to do this in everyday life. So it becomes a way of living once you understand the process. So that's my little contribution.
Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome share. Yeah, and you know what, that component is it's just such a powerful component. Yeah. Again, it goes back to the word I spoke earlier, which is heva, right? So it's actually it's if you speak about it again, right? This is one of the ground rules of Ho'oponopono, right? To speak about it again, to bring it up, and you know, to draw on it. You defile your session of Ho'oponopono, and there are consequences for that, but the consequences don't come from me or from the practitioner of Ho'oponopono. The consequences of that comes down between you and the higher being or the higher power or that source that you believe in. Yeah, that is between the two of you. Yeah, but there's with that kind of consequence, and the knowing that there's a consequence for defilement, it immediately it immediately puts the power back where it belongs, yeah, which is with the individual. Yeah.
Like a sacred agreement. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And as you said, it brings it back to you. What do you want to do? How do you want to live? What are the choices that you're making? And do you want to follow a path of happiness or follow a path of misery? I mean, yeah. And then taking it away from the person who did that to me or the situation that did that to me, realizing that it's only myself that I'm harming if I'm holding on to anything. You know, yeah, it was a really great shift for me in understanding that.
Yeah. Wow. Questions, comments, contributions? We're pretty deep into Ho'oponopono right now. That's great. Joe, did you have?
I have a question.
Yes.
So you referenced before how everything has a spirit and everything is alive. So how would you how would you define a spirit? What is it to you? Is it consciousness? Is it being alive? Like what is a spirit really in essence?
Yeah, great. Energy. Yeah.
Just energy, pure energy.
Yes. Pure energy. And the reason that I'm answering it in this way, one, because that's the way that our ancestors view and understand it. But two, is that particularly with the components that you brought forward in your ask, right? In many forms of thought, in many forms of understanding, consciousness is only attributed to human beings. So for this reason, yeah, when we are speaking of spirit, there's a couple different layers here. Great question. Who asked? Who's asking?
Theo.
Yeah, Theo.
My name is Theo. I'm Joe's son.
Yeah, awesome, dude. Awesome. Okay, so we get down to it, right? Well, we all get down to it in steps, yeah, and in layers. You seem to just want to cut straight to it, so that's great. You know, I'm really appreciating where you're coming from with that ask. So, sometimes people ask us, okay, well, do you have an understanding of do we have an understanding, does Polynesians, does Hawaiians have an understanding of what a soul is, right? And with very similar qualities and characteristics of this concept of spirit. So this is what I'm trying to do. What I'm working through is the different layers that people ask this question, in which we arrive at the answer that I just gave you, which is that it's energy, it's pure energy. All right. So again, the soul, first and foremost, is a Christian concept. And it's a beautiful concept. There's no disagreement. There's no argument here, right? I'm simply identifying the different forms in which people attribute the existence, existence period of, in human context, right? So, and in human context, from a Christian perspective and point of view, the soul is only attributed to human beings, right? So animals, trees, rocks, waterfalls don't have a soul. Soul is something that's specific to humans. And so we don't have in Hawaiian, Polynesian, indigenous thought, we don't have a concept of a soul. Right? We have what we call Ohana, and the Ohana, once again, is the spirit. And it is the spirit which travels. Yeah. The mana is the spirit power, yeah, or the power of that spirit. The mana is what stays. So when we die, for example, our mana remains. Yeah. It's flesh and blood and it's bone. Yeah. In ancient Hawaiian understanding, Polynesian, in ancient indigenous understanding, the mana, the spirit power, resides in an individual's bones. Right. So this is another reason. This is another reason why land also, yeah, the aina, the land becomes so very important and sacred in the teachings of our ancestors, and that is because we bury our dead into the earth, right? Their bones remain, yeah. Their mana is in the earth, yeah, and everything that walks or grows atop of the earth, yeah, is supported on a spiritual basis in the thinking of an indigenous Hawaiian individual by the mana, by the bones of their ancestors, which are buried within it. Yeah. So
do you believe that, sorry to interrupt. Do you believe that, is it the Hawaiian way that everything has a spirit, not just human beings?
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Thank
I
you.
love
That's
your
interesting.
Yeah, I love your swiftness. Yeah, you're very swift, Theo, and really appreciating that. Yeah, that's the conclusion of that long-winded share. Yes, in the thinking of the Hawaiian, everything has spirit, and spirit is energy. Yeah. Good, awesome. Want to go anywhere else? That's fun.
Yeah. I just want to make a comment on that note, saying that spirit is energy, and I think in Ho'oponopono session that that I have had, it is a movement of it is also a movement of energy. That's like, all I'm saying is it's an experience of doing it, and it's not just a mental exercise, but after Ho'oponopono, I've experienced that I'm actually in a different space, that energy has moved, so that when maybe the same thing happens, I simply don't feel the same way. It doesn't occur, as a habitual reaction, and so it's hard to describe, but for me, it's the thing that makes it so powerful is it's not just a mental discipline. I mean, yes, keeping the agreement in Ho'oponopono, is a mental, remembering and not going there again. But I've found that there's just a whole lot more than that. The
return of the light.
It can be different. Yeah, I mean, sort of, it's like walking out into a new space, a powerful new space of being, where you're moving differently, and things are freer and clearer. And yeah, so no, you can't compare to counseling, which I think is a mental agility. You know, it seems to be, I don't know, 360 degrees. It seems to operate on many different levels and layers. That's my experience.
Absolutely. And you know you know, this component of energy, when energy becomes dense, right? When it
Becomes like stone.
it becomes like stone, right? So absolutely is what all I'm saying is yes, absolutely yes. And when we look at it from an energetic point of view, what we're doing is we are lightening, yeah, we're changing the vibration of that energy. And the energy that we've attached to, or that we are giving to that circumstance or that experience. And energy vibrates at different, you know, anger is a totally different vibration of energy than hatred, right? It's much denser. And it's really vibrant. It's really rapid too. It's really fast. It's, you know, it's that energy is vibrating much faster than my wooden desk or my shell. You know what I mean? So it's the density, yeah, and the calibration of the vibration of that energy. So what we're able to do in Ho'oponopono is change, literally change the vibration. Oh. Right on. Awesome. Andrea, did you have something that you wanted to share, contribute, or Julian?
Not really. No, I just it's really deep and really lovely listening to the conversation. No, so far just been magic. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay.
Yes, I'm really enjoying it. It's super loud at home. We got the pressure cooker going and we're just having dinner with kids, but yes, it's been great listening to you guys. I might remute because yes, it's a bit loud, but loving it.
Awesome.
Some says hi.
Hello, hey. Awesome. Yeah, so look, let's talk about ancestors. Okay, so
I'm going to have to excuse myself in a minute. I have to go, but look, I'll let you go on to ancestors. I'm here in the background.
Cool. So look, and let's do this by sharing some more stories. Okay, so here's a picture, here's a story of Ho'oponopono in an older form. Yeah, in its old form. Or an older time is what I should say. The form is the same, it's just the time. So in an older time, right, when you had somebody that became sick or that fell ill in the family, right, the elder, the kupuna, yeah, of the ohana of your family would say to the ohana, to the family, hey, we have a family member that's sick. We need to do ho'oponopono. So the elder, the kupuna, would call together all of the family. Right? And this would be 3, 4, 5, 6 generations deep, yeah, of the living. Then through prayer, right, and through direct counsel, right, then we'd step into the generations of ancestors. So all of the family would come, all of the family would gather around this member of the family that was ill, yeah, and every single member would speak, yeah, would share whatever it is that they had thought, said, or had done that had contributed to this person's illness. Wow, right? Every single member of the family. And it'd go right down the line. Yep. And it was seen, it was observed, it was known that healing could not, true healing could not take place until it had been released by that member from every member of the family. And in this older time, this is really where we're talking about the roots of forgiving, yeah, the relationship, the dynamics of forgiving and forgetting and remembering really come from. Yeah, that's where the roots really come from, is that kind of a family dynamic. Yeah. Every single member, it wasn't, the pohaku was no longer going to exist. Eradicated, gone, done. You know? But what an incredible time. It's still done that way. Yeah. Not only was it done back then, but it's still, yeah, done that way by many families today. Right. So this is about, again, this is about that broader understanding of Ohana, a family. Yeah. This is, we are one family. Yeah. There's no separation here. Yeah. It's all connection. It's all free and clear. Yeah. And every single relationship will remain free and clear. Oh. Also, too, Ho'oponopono was a really important component in ensuring the journey, yeah, of the spirit after death. Right. So there was going to be nothing that would prevent that member of our family, their spirit, from going where it needs to go. In ancient understanding, the pohakus, yeah, it weighs the spirit down. Yeah, and it can, some pohakus really can prevent our spirit from making that journey. So this speaks of no regrets, you know what I mean? No unspoken words, yeah, all out, all done, everything's good, and preparing, yeah, everything was in preparation, yeah, everything here in the living, in this realm, was in preparation for the journey, preparation for the next realm, right? And we, you know, our ancestors weren't gonna let anything prevent the spirit of our ohana, of the family, from making that journey. Oh, all of it was it in the, you know, nurturing that process. So I want to speak to Robin for a moment, or Robin, I want to hear you speak for a moment. What are your thoughts?
What are my thoughts? Tonight has been just, for me, amazing. I've done a lot of body work. I had to deal with anger from my work arena. But the way I did it was with help. A friend who had a skill base. And the anger has all gone. And the weight that anger you had on your shoulders, for it to be gone is just such a blessing. I just adore your bowl of light and the stones that we put in one after the other as life goes on. But you just finished up by saying that the ancestors and the families, your families who practice this, is that when a member of the family leaves the earth plane, they leave free of the stones. And wow, that's really something for me to really think about. And bless you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, whoa, you're giving me goosebumps now too. All right, awesome. Yeah. Oh, wow. I mean, I'm not ready to make that journey right now, but look, like, that's what it's about. You know what I mean? And to
I had never looked through that lens before. That's huge. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
I know exactly what you mean. It is.
Thank you.
It is. And you're welcome, but the thanks needs to go to them. You know what I mean? So wow, you know, how awesome. What it's bringing to mind, where the goosebumps are coming in for me, is that we put so much emphasis on what's happening now. Yeah. Or there's so much energy, there's so much thought, there's so much effort that that is put into other or placed, we direct in other areas of our lives. And speaking about it, speaking about that journey in this way just makes me realize how important it is to direct some of that energy for that time.
Yes.
Oh, I really
Blessing.
appreciate. Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing it like that. You know, and we have so many, you know, we have so many movies, we have so many stories, we have so many books of that moment. You know what I mean? Through I'm gonna say it, but through a really Western lens, yeah. That imagery of you know, waiting till you're on your deathbed for that moment, for that light bulb to go off. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, I wish I would have said that to my family, or I wish I would have told them that I love them, or I wish I would have, you know what I mean? And by then it's like, whoa, shucks, you know. Just speaks to the immediacy, the need for yeah, well, just to get it done now. Get it done now.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that, you know, just in the discussion of Ho'oponopono, the thing that, you know, comes up now is, you know, the fact that it was done daily, that Ho'oponopono wasn't just a, you know, a one-time big event, you know, to get rid of your stones and baggage, but that it's, you know, it's to be done every day. And before you go to sleep, to ensure you've cleared anything that happened in your day, so you can, yeah, Kumu learns, and you always say, you know, so you can sleep well. And it just makes me realize, you know, as human beings, and particularly the Western mind, carries so much forward, you know, me included, you know. That just came to mind.
Yeah, you broke up a little bit there at the end, but I captured it, Joe. And yeah, absolutely. You know, that's one of the things we say, you know, it's actually one of the main things that Auntie Edith Kanakaole said. She's a master hula dancer, hula teacher. And, you know, that was really a deep component of her share about Ho'oponopono, is that this was something that you did every day, and it's something that you did before the setting of the sun. Yeah, so that you entered into sleep and you had good dreams. Yeah. And again, it speaks to that immediacy. Yeah. Our ancestors weren't messing around. Yeah, simple people, happy people, loving people, welcoming people, open. Yeah. But they were not messing around with that kind of stuff. They knew the consequences of it. They knew where it could lead. And so for this reason, you take care of it. Take care of it, get rid of it. And so that you can move on. You know what I mean? You know, when And they say, yeah, exactly, Robin. You know, when they say move on, they're not just talking about like move on in life. They mean like move on, like over there.
Yes.
That kind of moving on, you know.
I'm looking at life through a different lens at this moment in time as a result of this conversation. It's a journey, the journey of life. The whole purpose of it is the journey of life.
Yes.
And love is the key.
And love is the key. Yeah. Oh, you're gonna make me cry. Uh-oh. No. Uh-oh. You're making me cry. You're making me emotional. Yeah. One journey from beginning to end. And you know, there's no end. There's no end. And you know, and it speaks again of that, you know, in my mind, it speaks again of the energy and how energy changes and moves. Yeah. Great stuff. Oh yeah. Any kind of trouble, any kind of pilikia. Yeah, do it now. Take care of it now. You know, don't wait. Yeah, and that component also to it. It speaks to the fact that, you know, the next moment isn't guaranteed for any of us. You know. So don't take anything for granted, you know, do it now and get it done. You know, get it done so you can, you know, live life the way it's supposed to be lived, yeah, to its fullest. And yeah. And so in another way, that's what Ho'oponopono is really all about. It's about getting yourself back to a place where you're living life to its fullest. Yeah. Again, those pohakus, they shut you down. Fear, anger, hatred, all that stuff prevents us from living life to its fullest. So look, and one last component that I wanted to that I'm inspired to share at this moment, because it's been a theme the last couple of months for me, in some of the conversations that I've been having with people about Ho'oponopono. And you know, when we overcome something, when we resolve to find love again, and we find it, the thanks that we give, the fortune that we acknowledge, is directed towards our ancestors. Many a times in this, what we see, yeah, and I'll speak specifically from my point of view, and again referencing some of the conversations that I've been a part of the last couple of months. We see a lot of people and practices that that attribute the good things in life to anger. Very directly. Yeah. There's been, okay, I'll, for example, I hear a lot of, I wouldn't be anywhere, yeah, or I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't been angry. Yeah. Or if I hadn't overcome that. Yeah, or whatever it is, yeah, whatever it is that that an individual can be faced with or dealt with. So, and all I'm saying is that, on all that our ancestors are saying is that when we overcome something, when we let go of a pohaku, when we let go of a stone, we don't thank the stone for being a part of our lives after it's gone. The thanks we give back to our ancestors, to the light that we carry that we're born with, to the guidance of the higher being or the higher power or the source. That's who we attribute our thanks to when we overcome a pohaku, or we find the strength to let a pohaku go. And we cannot, as cultural practitioners, we cannot allow the stones to convince us that they are anything other than what they are. You know, the secret agenda of the pohaku, yeah, of the stone of anger, isn't happiness, right? Anger's not sitting around like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make them really angry so that one day they can resolve to understand how happy they are. You know? That's not happening, right? Anger is anger, and it is what it is. Yeah. So give thanks to the light that you carry, you're born with. Yeah, that's where it really needs to go. Give thanks to your ancestors and the path that they've laid out for you, that they've traveled already for you to follow. That's where the thanks goes. Anyway, I don't know why I was inspired to share that last component, but I just was. Are there any other questions or comments or contributions?
Oh, I might quickly, if you have time. I just want us to run outside.
Yeah. Awesome.
But yeah, regarding what you were saying about don't thank the rocks. Like, couldn't we like somehow say that, like to some extent, the tribulation, that comes to are sort of like part of the plan as well, in order for you to evolve, and therefore, can you say anger is anger and that's just what it is? But it's like the fact that we are, how can I say it? Presented with those situations that brings those states in us, and whether we overcome it or not, wouldn't that somehow be part of the progression as well? Like, I don't know, for some reason.
Yes.
Like,
Love that.
because I don't know, from where I see this, like, like the creator, you can't really subtract anything from it or add to it. It's like the whole thing. Therefore, I don't know. Like, is there plan? Is there, like, is it sort of planned? Like that struggle, is it for us to smash it and see the other side, kind of thing? I don't know if I don't know if even it's a question or but
yeah, I totally understand. I got you. I hear you. I understand you, Julian. Ah, yes. Okay, so anger, anger, fear, hatred, all of those pohakus, right? All of those stones. We'll stick just with anger. Anger has its place. In this universe because it exists. But that does not mean that anger has a place in our internal universe.
Mm.
We should not, because it exists in this universe and it has its place, does not mean that it has its place in our internal universe.
Mhm. So to use, I don't know. Is it like is it like a something that's bad, or is it like a tool, or is it, you know what I mean? Like, does it just happen, or I don't know.
It just is. That's one of those components, of our universe where we acknowledge that it just is. Where it came to be, how it first started, is neither here nor there. Rather, it's understanding that it is there, and that there is where it belongs.
Yeah. No, I understand that it's an hindering thing in itself, you know what I mean? But then the sheer fact of overcoming it is how you progress. Therefore, I don't know. You know, it's a bit of a complicated concept. Like gift and a curse, obviously, it's bad to, you know, hold on to, and you know. But then, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, the more you ask, the more question you have. You know. It's funny.
Yeah, totally. Hey, I know
guess that's
exactly
life,
what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. Man. That's why I went, with all the questions I had. When I found my teacher, when I found Lawrence, I was like, you're my teacher, and I'm coming to live with you in Halava.
That's
what
that's what it took. I suppose that's what's necessary right now. Yeah. No, well, thank you for sharing and hosting these talks. I think it's great. It's like very, very stimulating, no?
Yeah, absolutely. It is stimulating, and it's exciting. For me, maybe not for everybody, but it definitely is. It's exciting for me, to speak about this and to explore how our ancestors did things, and how they understood things to work and operate. That's my path. That's talking about my personal path. I've always found that to be really fulfilling and enjoying to explore it, to learn it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And can I ask you another question, right? Was it like were you like really young when you started like to kind of walk that path, or were you kind of born in it, or?
Yeah. Okay. So, whoa, that's a big one, but that's cool. Sorry. So that's all good. So I was born with the blood, right? I was born with the cocoa, what we call cocoa, born with the blood. However, I was adopted out of my family, my biological family, really young. I was 5 months old, and and I was adopted by a Caucasian family, full throttle American Caucasian family. And Idaho, you know what I mean? My grandparents on my dad's side are from Idaho, and my mom's side is from Iowa. But anyway, so however, that my parents were very open, yeah, and they nurtured what they saw in me, and I'm very fortunate for that. So I maintained my connection at birth, is what I'm saying. And I was at 10 years old is when I made the conscious decision to learn about spirit, right? That's when the concept of spirit actually entered into my consciousness. That's when I was aware of it, through my mom. So, and then from 10 years old, when the concept entered and I had this word spirit, that's, I started the whole intellectual journey of it, and I went into many different cultural practices and philosophies, from 10 years old. And I was 23 when I found my teacher. And I actually reserved, I told myself, oh, look, I'm going to save my Hawaiian, my Hawaiian spirituality for last, because I really had a desire at that time. At 10 years old, I really had the desire to learn about it in its traditional way, or at least in the traditional way that I was reading about and looking at that time in my life. I had all of these stories and pictures and imagery of going in, becoming a hermit, and going into the mountains and going into the caves and, learning about spirituality that way. And so I literally told my parents at 10 years old, I said, Mom, Dad, I want to go learn, and I will go away. I'll forget you. I'll abandon my whole life, and I'll go and I'll learn in that way. And particularly my Hawaiian spirituality. So, but I was 23 years old when that actually came true. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. So, yeah. Mahalo. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Anywhere else we want to go? All right, then I'm gonna call it an evening. Okay. Joe, when are we back together, and do we have an idea of what the topic's going to be, or do we save that for announcement later?
So in 2 weeks, it's the 22nd, Monday the 22nd, we'll be back. And yeah, I don't know, where do we want to go next? Or maybe we can decide it later, the topic.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Okay, great. Mahalo. Beautiful session.
Mahalo, everyone, for being here, and really appreciate all of the engagement and this whole journey of getting to know one another has been an absolute treat. So I look forward to the next one.
Oh, and so do I.
Okay, we'll see each other in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Thank
Ahui.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks.
Mahalo.
Bye.
And
Bye.
Bye.
bye.